Alright, and welcome back for some more Duelist. It's been a while. This time I'm doing a tournament report for Flash Archon 23 I played in last weekend. I haven't really been playing in the tourneys since the game released, partially due to being busy and partially just motivation. Didn't feel like playing in them. But I played in one the week before and lost kind of early. But yeah, that's to be expected. You can't win them all, and you have to try again, and if you do, sometimes you get rewarded. So it was a new patch, but before the patch dropped, I'd been spamming like loads of Spellhai up the ladder to get an early S rank. And yeah, when I sort of decided that, oh yeah, I'll play in this tournament, it was sort of the obvious pick because it's sort of the only thing I've been playing for like the last 80 games. So you can see all this stuff on screen. I expect most people here, if you're watching this channel, you're probably already familiar with Spellhai. But I don't think it's a bad idea just to go over the deck that I played and how I think about it. Right, so the main conceit of the deck is you play, hopefully a good number, but sometimes one is enough of your spell trigger cards, these being Chakra Avatar, Blood Rage Mask, and or Four Winds Magi. And then once one of those, or preferably multiple of those, are in play, you unleash a spell combo. Quite possibly you start with a Mana Vortex in the Heaven's Eclipse, but ultimately you're trying to use some of your spell-based burst damage, that being Juxtaposition. Technically it doesn't do any damage, but I'm including it here as, practically speaking, it's always bringing a backline minion onto their face to do some damage. And then yeah, Inner Focus, Saber Spine Steel, and Phoenix Fire. And that's usually how games end when the deck's working correctly. Of course, any deck, you need some opening plays to not absolutely brick and just lose to your opponent's tempo. For this, I'm just running 9, which, yeah, it's the bare minimum. But those are Heartseeker, Chakra Avatar, and Kaido Assassin. Notably, you might be thinking, well, isn't like Blood Rage Mask and Tuskbore, they're like 2 mana cards that you can play. I really don't rate those as opening plays as player 1. Yeah, you can use Tuskbore to take the mana tile, and yeah, you can drop out of the Heartseeker if you like, but you really don't have to. You take 1 damage now, maybe they answer your Tuskbore, or just know to play around it. Yeah, it's not super powerful to do that. You really want to be mulliganing and yeah, hitting one of these 3. As for Blood Rage Mask, I always try and save it for a combo. Like if you drop it early, you end up with really ugly early turns as you're trying to play the spell to get the value off the Blood Rage Mask, but ideally you'd just be developing more minions to set up better. But I don't think I'd play a Blood Rage Mask early ever, really. It's just asking for it to get removed and then not really be efficient. You already kind of have some struggles with hand size in this deck. It's really important to manage your hand, and blowing it's one of your key cards. It's one of how you win the game. It's like your win condition is equip a Blood Rage Mask and cast a bunch of spells. And if you blow that early, it kind of sucks a lot of the time. Not that it can never work, it just often doesn't. Also, yeah, as player 2, actually this is where Tuskbore opens up. It becomes a really powerful opener. If your opponent plays a 2/3, you can just eat it. And then, yeah, take a Mana Tile and maybe drop one of your other cards, like a Kaido Assassin, to protect it or something. Or, obviously now that as player 2 you have 3 mana, you can also drop your Lantern Foxes, and yeah, get that on the board early. And like I mentioned, yeah, the deck can have some issues with hand management, but a good player will be able to get use out of Tuskbore returning to their hand. Lantern Fox is going to add Phoenix Fires to your hand. And of course, you will skillfully be able to draw into Heaven's Eclipse exactly when you need it, and get those wins. I'll go over matchups briefly, although I don't know how useful this information is, because you lose really more to effects than factions. But of course, different factions do have different amounts of access to those effects. But yeah, you kind of really don't like artifact removal, because Blood Rage Mask is pretty sweet, and that can include Rust Crawler, but also any direct damage or stuff getting swarmed out so that you can't even equip it. Of course, anything directed Spellhai, mostly Archon, but also like Keshrai Fanblade. I don't think there's much else in the game currently, but yeah, Archon really troubles you. You're playing a very aggressive deck that's looking to burn your opponent down to 0 HP, so if your opponent has tons of healing, then that's good for them and bad for you. Also, provokes are tough, especially like early game ones like Silverguard Knight and Lady Lock. Yeah, not super fun. Ideally, you just want to have free reign to bonk your opponent over the head or move about and position your stuff in the back line. Provoke locks you down there, quite annoying. And also, you don't have any removal. Like, your best removal is juxtaposition. So large minions, I mean, late game minions aren't a problem. You should be winning before then, ideally, but sort of the large mid-range sort of minions like Swarm Scarab and Silithar, whatever the middle Silithar is called, they can be a bit annoying. Hopefully you can like just save a spine, steal them, but yeah, anything that's sort of like 6 HP or more can be. I mean, it's just a trouble. It's not like it's gonna lose you the game every time they come down. It's just, yeah, you sometimes have to make a decision that, oh, at this point, I'm not gonna kill this poor Guardian. I'm just gonna go face. But yeah, that is a decision point, and it's not always easy. But yeah, I will talk about the factions, and we're going to start with Lionar, which is probably the worst faction you don't really want to come up against, and I suppose that makes it probably not a good time for Spellhai. It seems that Lionar is probably the strongest faction right now. They might not be, they might, it might just appear that way at the moment, but they definitely seem really good right now, like definitely in contention for that top spot. And yeah, they're also not that tough to play either. So you could struggle on ladder if you run into a bunch of Lionar. They have like loads of healing, like if they sun drop Alcyn sun drop or something, you're just like, oh please, like my Phoenix Fire does 3 damage. And yeah, you're kind of undoing all that. Yeah, and of course they have provokes as well. Iron Cliff and Silverguard Knight are tough. They also have Grandmaster Zir, which can absolutely save them from like your lethal plan, like you're gonna lethal them. But now they've got this. Zir's not too awful because if you just put them into Zir, that makes their max HP 12. And yeah, it's usually not hard to assemble a 12 damage combo. But yeah, it can absolutely like wreck up your turn where you were planning on killing them. Now you can't kill them and they kill you back. So it's a tough matchup. My best advice would be to draw a good hand and yeah, like push your early aggression and hope they don't draw their answers to line up well with your threats. Like get a good Chakri combo and bonk them over the head early. Songhai, obviously you're playing against your own faction. So, it's partly just important to draw well, but I guess as some advice, Chakri is really good. It's cheap, and then if you buff out Phoenix Fire and Tuskball range, that's quite important to do. Then it becomes quite hard for them to deal with if you get it to 4 HP. Speaking of things that have 4 HP, Lantern Fox, if you get the Lantern Fox out first, then you're going to be like swimming in Phoenix Fires and just destroying all the things that they try to develop. And yeah, the other 4 HP thing is 4 Winds Magus. If you stick this first, again, like it's a bit annoying to deal with. Because yeah, Phoenix Fire and Tuskball don't kill it. But yeah, I don't have loads of additional advice on the matchup because there's so many similar cards, and it's just so bursty, right? You can die, either player can die from surprising life totals. It's just how it is. As for Vitruvian, they're usually quite low healing. They don't have much in-faction healing. Although the second wish, now I guess it is a little bit. Imara is usually not a big problem because you can jux that way. But if they start with a bunch of obelisks in the early game, it is a nightmare to clear obelisks. Or Poor Guardian, like they can play these bunch of really cheap, really high HP minions, and you can only deal with them for so long before you suddenly realize that I've actually like spent like 20 HP into these minions. Like if I just sent it to their face, I would have won already. But at the same time, you can't just like let their Fireblaze Obelisk and Portal Guardian that they play on turn 1 or 2, depending on if they go first or second, right? Just sit on board and like hit you. So it's really there is a balance to be drawn between, you know, not losing to their board, but also not getting caught up in their game of board control. Like, you need to find the right time to switch to killing them, which, you know, easier said than done. But as you play the deck more, you'll get a feel for it. Abyssian, finally, something I can confidently say I actually like this matchup, especially with the Knights or Assassin nerf. They can't just delete your Fox anymore, so that's probably going to get at least one Phoenix Fire for you now. And also 4 Winds Magi, again, really hard for them to answer. If they're especially not have stuff on board already and they can like whip it into, like, then they'll need a whip and a Spectral Blade, or a whip and grasp something. But yeah, I guess what you have to watch out for against Abyssian is they do have good healing like Void Pulse, and yeah, they're usually running Spectral Blade, which gives them a little bit of extra HP, so you can like save your Blood Rage Mask for after they've misused that. But in general, yeah, it's not too bad. Abyssian's alright. They're usually trying to win the game around 7 mana, which is the same time you're trying to win the game. But I just feel like you have better tools against them, so that's not too bad. And then, yeah, Magmar. Obviously, Magmar's subject of a lot of complaints right now. People don't like Flash and Spirit Harvester, but we're actually not that weak to Magmar. Although, I don't want to say anything too concretely because their like main deck, their best deck, whatever, Twin Fang, just got nerfed. And we don't exactly know what the most popular Magmar deck is going to be. I guess for advice, like, they can sometimes struggle to answer artifacts. I don't know if that's going to be true if they're going to be running Rust Crawlers. If Linar and Regalia is super popular, maybe, you know, every Magmar will be running 3 Rust Crawlers, but maybe not. Also, yeah, make sure you always play your 4 Winds away so you don't get it Mechantod. I mean, I say always, obviously there's exceptions, but try and not have your 4 Winds get easy Mechantors. And yeah, you can play Heartseekers and that to dodge natural selection. But yeah, don't like spam a bunch of Heartseekers out and get blown out by Spirit Harvester and then complain that card is OP. Just like play smart, right? And then you have a pretty reasonable chance against Magmar, I believe. Vanar, they always seem to be the least common faction, at least right now. But there's for sure some good Vanar players out there that you're not exactly happy to run into. I guess their main deck was like glacial elemental stuff, so that got changed. So they're probably just going to be running Jax Razorback stuff, I imagine. I don't know for sure. Obviously, my list cut Ghost Lightning, which yeah, I never super loved that card, but obviously it was good against Jax, but it's not really that good against Prophet, which Jax is usually run with Prophet anyway. But yeah, I guess advice for Vanar, yeah, be careful not to die to Razorback Swarms. You know, fight for board as much as you have to not to die. But, you know, similar to Vitruvian, they usually pack a little less healing, and similar to Magmar, they usually have trouble answering artifacts. So, yeah, save a Blood Rage Mask for a good turn, and then hopefully, you know, they don't answer it, and then you can do Heaven's Eclipse on the next turn or something. The problem with Vanar is they have really fantastic removal, like Chromatic cards, just going to delete your Chakra Avatar. Yeah, and Cryogenesis just bonks your 4 Winds Magi. Yeah, I think if you like set up a good early turn, you can just push through with damage and win before they draw what little healing they do have. I mean, that's sort of the overview. Like I said, you really lose more to effects than specific factions. And yeah, there's certainly access to healing and Archon in neutral and artifact removal in neutral. So I feel like Songhai is kind of easy to hit out of the meta if your opponent chooses to. But when nobody's looking and nobody's planning for it, then yeah, Spellhai gets to run wild.